Well, I would say leadership's been central in my career in several ways. I mean, I give you 2 or 3 examples. My first observation would be that somebody gave me opportunity throughout my career, which actually, frankly, I was almost unqualified to take, but somebody had sufficient faith to give me those opportunities and give me those experiences to learn. And in some ways, it doesn't matter how good you are and how intellectual you are, but you just can't know what you've never seen. So one of the most important things is to have somebody who can develop you as a person, as a leader, and give you all of those different experiences. And that's been absolutely huge, and has only really come home to me in recent years when you can use all of those experiences. And as I've watched different leaders, good ones, bad ones, or good ones going bad, or however, I think one can learn some pretty important lessons, which it's always good to keep present in one's mind. The first being that the line between confidence and hubris is a very thin one. It's very easy to fall the wrong side of that line. And I think it relates to where confidence comes from in a person or in a leader, and confidence comes, I think, from the inside, or has to come from the inside. It mustn't come from all the trappings and the things around. It must come from the inside, and that allows, I think, one to keep the right side of that line between sort of overconfidence and hubris and confidently moving forward. The other thing I think is that it is incredibly important and increasingly important to put mechanisms around oneself that can challenge in a constructive way and in a way that a leader can hear. It doesn't take long before you start believing your own rhetoric and drinking your own whisky, and you need people around who can actually challenge that and keep you, keep your feet on the ground. And I think those are pretty important lessons. And then I think the other thing that occurs to me as I go on, I guess, is that in the end you can always be the boss. But to be a leader, you have to have people who want to follow you. And for people to want to follow you, they have to respect something about what you have. And respect can be transient. It could be about intellect. It could be about charisma. It could be about the power you hold over them. But those things don't last. What really lasts is a set of values that you live life by and that you lead by. And I think that people respect a set of values, and that becomes, I think, increasingly important for a leader to exhibit and live by a set of values which are clear, and I think that's what makes people, in the end, respect and want to follow you. So there's a few observations about how it's impacted me. Well, I think technology is making leadership ever more difficult in a number of ways. I mean, the first observation would be, the world is shrinking as technology accelerates. Your image can be flashed across the world in seconds through Reuters and Bloomberg and all of these things. And that means that many people around the world can judge you almost instantaneously. So you have to be really careful about how you speak in front of cameras such as this, because you never know where that may show up. And I think the odd slip, and we all make them, can compromise one's ability to lead. So that's a tougher bar, that's a higher bar for leaders to deal with. The other aspect is that leadership is increasingly global. At least in industry, if you're a global company. And now we've really got to worry about different cultures, different belief systems in different parts of the world, and how a leader exhibits leadership when belief systems are fundamentally different, I think is just more challenging than if we're leading a bunch of people like ourselves. So I think that's a second area where it's becoming increasingly difficult. A third area, I suppose, is, we're all bombarded with so much information, and that's being made possible by technology. And so the old maxim that information is power just doesn't exist anymore, because everybody's got the same information. So I think there's an increasing premium on selectively understanding, being selective about the information we look at, and actually being rather more insightful with what we do with it. And that's another bar that's raised. So I actually think it's getting tougher, not easier, with technology. Well, the pace of technology in all sorts of ways is accelerating, whether it be communications technology, whether it be as we in the oil industry reach into increasingly difficult and complex parts of the world to extract hydrocarbons. And we've just seen you know, a devastating example of what can go wrong. And so we're at the front edge. It doesn't feel, our industry doesn't feel like one which is at the front edge of technology, but in fact we are in many, many ways. And it is increasingly important as a leader in there that we do understand those, and that we take, for the oil industry, that we take a very clear view of where the technology is proven and we can rely on it, or perhaps where we're stepping outside of those bounds. And you know, that becomes, I think, increasingly important for us.